So the next speaker is Devorah Giladi, who is doing her postdoc at Bar-Ilan University. She is lecturing history in Ariel University, and the topic, as you probably know, it's in front of you, the program, I guess, is on the failed memorialization of the 1929 riots. So, Devorah, please. I will.
מישהו יודע איפה המצגות? אני העברתי את זה
למטה, יש לך פאורפוינט, צורה של פאורפוינט, נמציא את זה אחד מהם.
כן. טוב, hello everyone. I will talk about the failed commemoration of the 1929 riots. The 1921 the riots, Tarpat riots in Hebrew, seems to have been the most shaking and dramatic event of the first decade of the British mandate. During the riots, 133 Jews and 116 Arabs were killed. These riots were a breaking point in the Jewish-Arab relationship in the land of Israel. This lecture addresses the riots from the perspective of the Jewish issue. The issue was shocked. Until these riots, the struggle between Jews and Arabs had never reached such high levels of violence. From a reaction in the issue, it seemed that no other event in its history around such fear. In the eyes of Ben-Gurion, the riots turned the unthinkable idea of eradication the issue into a realistic possibility. Bathing the shaking and the powerful event, acts of commemoration, telling the story and remembering the fallen would be expected. It should be noted that memorialization was the issue was aware of and had given expression to following previous events. This lecture represents 5 memorial initiatives that began within a year of the riots. 4 commemoration books and 1 monument. We shall examine the various initiatives and who were behind each one and attempt to understand why they failed. The first book, memorial book was published just a month after the riots. Its title is My People Victim, Halalei Bat Ami, a holy commemoration of the holy and pure who were killed in the land of Israel during the week of blood, days of pogroms and horrors after Tarpat. The title page reads, God shall remember, the nation of Israel shall remember, the souls of holy and pure brothers who were killed, slaughtered, choked and burned in the holy cities of Jerusalem, Motza, Hebron, Tzfat, Tel Aviv, and the Moshavot. The book opens with a picture of crying babies. Next to the picture are the words, the injured child Shlomo Slonim, the only remnant of the family of the Rebbe Eliezer Tam Slonim, who were murdered in Hebron. The injured Slonim child, 1.5-year-old, lost both parents and his sister in the Hebron massacre. The book is full of lamentation in the traditional Jewish style. For example, where are the Torah seders who seculated themselves in your dwelling, falling upon your holy books like beheaded calves. They also tune to God. The cause of the death is a signification of the holy name. The goal of the lamentation is mourning the righteous who were killed. In addition, the book also contains horrific photos, specifically intended to shock readers, such as photos of murdered dead, some burnt, and mutilated. Most of the victims are described as having lived in the holy city. Clearly, the goal of this book is a documentation of the murder of Jews and lamentation over their death. The land of Israel connection is not obvious. A similar book could have been published for Jewish victims in other parts of the world, as indeed often happened in Europe after pogroms. If we look at the author of this book, we see that Pinchas Grajewski was a writer and a historian, a native of Jerusalem, son of an old Yishuv rabbinic family. He wrote hundreds of articles and books in the annals of the old Yishuv. His main occupation was historical documentation through photos and documents he collected and published. In sum, this purpose of this book was documentation of the Tarpat riots. We continue to the second commemoration book. The nation of Israel shall remember the holy victim of Tarpat. It is published by Abba Tzvi Brezin. It seems to have attempt to combine traditional commemoration with a nationalistic message. Along with the eulogies, there is a call to strengthen the Yishuv. The author defines one of his goals at the beginning of the book. The book as follows. The page of this book will tell our brother in the diaspora that the smaller the Hebrew community in the place of riots, the greater the number of the victims. Therefore, the nation in diaspora is called upon to give the only response possible to the events of Tarpat. Constant stream of rising Aliyah that will assure our future in the land, established our inheritance for a basement to roof. This will be fulfillment of the last will of our holy heroes. The book is divided according to the site. The Holy of Moza, Mina Maklef, the Holy of Jerusalem, etc. This emphasizes the message that the murder is not senseless. It is related to settlement in the land of Israel. Most of the book consists a picture of those killed next to their personal stories. The final page constitutes a separate chapter entitled Fruit of Our Nurturing. This chapter commemorates the 3 children murdered during the riots, all 3 in Hebron. The description of their death is heartbreaking. They are described as having been murdered literally in their mother's arms. Devorah Giladi's mother hid her daughter with her body, but he murdered them. The murderer noticed. Menachem Segal was in his mother's arms, and she begged that they killed her and not touch the child. An interesting details appears in the endnote of the book. The author writes that he made great effort to commemorate all of the victims and include pictures of all of them. However, to his amazement, some requests for photos but no response. We will return to this note later. About the author. Abba Tzvi Brezin was a writer and a reporter. He wrote tens of books, mostly in Yiddish. He edited several newspapers that were not widely read. His work shows that he was very much into Zionism. We can conclude that the purpose of the book was to combine traditional commemoration with a nationalist message. He included eulogies for the dead, together with calls to strengthening the issue. Another book titled War and Peace in the Land of Israel, a memorial album, is written in three languages, Hebrew, English, and Yiddish. It was laid out a picture album with short explanation next to the picture. It has a strange combination of a history of the Yishuv and the story of the riots. The book presents figures and pictures from the annals of the Yishuv, such as Herzl, pioneer, men and women, children on kibbutz, and so on. Only afterward does the story of the riots appear with picture of the dead and the wounded, and picture of the place where the riots took place. At the end of the book, the author explains his intent. This album is presented to the reader is an album of the sorrow and happiness of our life in the land of Israel. Its main purpose is to uncover the events of our part through photos that tell the entire world at least some of the horrors we have endured to emphasize. The strength and courage shown by our protection forces, they erect a memorial of our 130 holy victims. The editor explains that he did not wish to present murderous events as disconnect and meaningless. He too, like Brezin, wrote that he made great effort to obtain pictures of all of the victims. However, to a great sorrow, a family member of a few of holy victims react to us with great lightedness. It is clear that the main purpose of this book is Zionist publicity. This also stands out in the publicity of the book, which emphasizes the rich format and the recommend given the book as a gift of relatives abroad. War and Peace, a memorial album from the early days of Zionism to this day, a gift book to your relatives abroad, a special format, the like of which have never yet been printed in the land of Israel. Large, special gilded cloth, bending, heavy paper, and special books, a lavish picture of the building of the land, the sites of destruction, and the holy victims of Avtarpat, many of wounded, and the refugees.
That's the advertisement for the album, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not a critical article, it's the advertisement.
Yes, it's from Haaretz. A combination of a breathtaking picture together with a picture of the wounded and homeless is definitely strange. However, the writer makes great effort to give a sense of optimism according to which the riots are part of story of building of the land. Let us meet the author, Yitzhak Twivaks. Born in Poland, was a publisher, a reporter, and a Zionist writer in Yiddish and in Hebrew. He wrote hundreds of Zionist articles that were mostly published in the Yiddish paper in Warsaw. Some of the book he wrote were published by the Zionist organization in Warsaw and included Zionist propaganda. Therefore, the book he published was intended as Zionist publicity with a professional calling. This is clear both from the book itself and from the advertisement for the book. The fourth and last book was published by Knesset Israel Yeshiva in Hebron, known since then as a Hebron Yeshiva. The Yeshiva lost 24 students during the riots. The book came out on the first anniversary of the riots at the initiatives of the students. This book, as opposed of other books, was written by people who had experienced the riots and used the dead personally. Some describe how memories of the horror have never left them, and they continually see them before their eyes. The book opened with the words of the head of the yeshiva. They try to give consolation by explaining that the victims were killed as an atonement for all of Israel. They also discourage too much mourning and say that one should continue in the tradition of our father, and together with the ever-burning agony in the heart, to connect to God with great love. Next come the pieces of the students who describe the righteousness of the fallen friend and the wish to continue in their ways, as well as an account of the struggle before they died. The story of each victim are personal and obviously written by a close friend. This book is clearly intended to commemorate the yeshiva student, to convey spiritual message and to share the difficult experience. This book is intended for the yeshiva students themselves. In sum, the Hebron Yeshiva prepared internal commemoration for their own students, so the sphere of influence was intended to be the yeshiva itself. This is not true for the three other books. Their authors felt that it's impossible that there be no commemoral for those murdered, seeing no organization, no organized commemoration. Their attempt to do so themselves. Their purposes was slightly different. Grajewski wanted to document the catastrophe in the Jewish world. Brezin saw the events in the land of Israel context and aimed to strengthen the issue. Trivax outspokenly aimed for Zionist publicity. However, the public did not respond. They did not buy the box and did not even send pictures of all those killed. None of the three books made significant waves in the media. It seems that a few of the interest in the books at all. The Yishuv did not want to arouse the melancholy the books brought forth, even though pushing the straining the Yishuv. The horror was still too prominent in the books. Furthermore, with such a story of children murdered in their mother's arm, encourage the Jews of the world to join the Yishuv? Definitely not. It seems that the Yishuv did not want to deal with commemoration of the victims of Tarpat, for it would promote no gain for the Yishuv.
Devorah, I'm just fulfilling your request to remind you of 5 minutes.
Okay. In fact, it emphasized the weakness, where the intent of the Yishuv was to promote a message of growth. The appropriate message was found in the story of one victim alone. Out of 133 Jews killed in the riots, the only one awarded a national commemoration was Ephraim Chizik, who was killed in Hulda. The story of Hulda, an agricultural farm in the Shvela, was unlike that of any other place in Tarpat. According to the account of witnesses from Hulda, the defense force, thousands of Arabs attacked the farm and were held back by the mere 23 men there. After the battle of 7 hours, over 40 dead Arabs were left and one dead Jew, Chizik. Such a ratio between dead Arabs and Jews did not exist any other place during the riots of Tarpat. A monument of work and protect, Avoda ve'Hagana, was erected in Hulda on the grave of Chizik. The committee responsible of the monument included a representative of the family and the Zionist organization. An impressive monument was erected by the artist Batya Lishansky. The message was a commitment of Yishuv society to detection and self-sacrifice. Clearly, the monument attempted to turn Chizik into a national hero, representing the Tarpat bloody clash, thereby turning the tragic event into something empowering and positive in the Zionist memory. But just as a commemoration book of Tarpat, so too the monument failed the test of reality. Within a few short years, it was neglected and forgotten, and never became a Zionist legend. For the sake of comparison, the Running Lion monument in Tel Chai was built during the same years and immediately became a success. However, Tel Chai was a story lacking an everyday context, whereas the context of Tarpat represented a continuous threat to existence. In summary, 4 books and 1 monument attempted to commemorate the events of Tarpat. All failed in that they did not leave a significant impression and did not attract the public.
1 minute, or
Why did the commemoration of Tarpat fail? The riots aroused a great fear. It seems that remembering the dead weakened the Yishuv and increased fear of the future. Even success stories such as Hulda remind the public of that threat. Therefore, the Yishuv repressed those memories and did not cooperate with commemoration effort. The violence incident were a sign of a new murderous height in the Zionist Arab conflict. Therefore, there were not a story the Yishuv was interested in commemorating. The violent attack of Tarpat were what the Yishuv wanted more than anything to forget.